Happy Friday. Sorry about missing yesterday, but that's all you get. I looked at the clock. I had a bunch of stuff on the plate, and I'm just like, nope, not going to do that today. But today, though, we're going to look through a long form with respect to verse of the day. The YouVersion app had Philippians 4:13, which was, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Which is a verse that gets quoted a lot out of context, and if you have the context added back in, it makes a big difference. And so I want to try and add in some of that. So we're going to start in verse 8, and we're going to continue on through 13, just to give a bit of a more of a sense of the depth that's really in there. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue, and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. The things which you learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you. Now I want to take a pause real quick. So in the sermon that I gave this last week on the simplicity of prayer, I talked about how prayer is not meditation. Now, the Bible does not tell us not to meditate, but it does give us something specific on which to meditate. And that's things that are true, noble, just, pure, lovely, good report. If there's virtue and praiseworthiness, meditate on these things. And I want to make a little bit of a controversial claim in that, similar to how Paul will later talk about, or maybe it was earlier, either way, Paul also talks about how all things are permissible, but not all things are profitable. In this sense, I reject how some Christians will remove themselves entirely from all of society. In that, while they can certainly do that, and that's a choice that can be made, I don't think that's what God commands. Excuse me, I haven't had my morning tea. I don't think that's what God expects of us in all circumstances. And, in the way that Paul would give up meat in order to prevent someone from stumbling, because there was a lot of times where meat would be sacrificed to idols as part of rituals, and then people would eat the meat afterwards. And, if that's going to cause somebody to stumble, then he's not going to eat that meat. Even if it's perfectly fine otherwise, even if in and of itself the meat's fine, he's not going to participate in that so that somebody else may not stumble and fall. Another example of that would be, we've had some folks attend our church who struggle with alcoholism. And so in order to be sensitive to their needs, we're not going to have alcohol at events or out or around them or anything of that sort. So, even if from a social standpoint, there are some of us who can enjoy a bit of alcohol responsibly, in order to help prevent those from sinning, we're going to do without. And we can do that through the strength of Christ. That's not an achievement that's external. It's an internal thing. It's, getting our head out of the space of, I need this, I need that, I need to be able to do this, I need to be able to do that, and nobody else, how they would interact with it should matter. It's about us being sensitive to the needs of others and being able to do that through the strength of Christ. So again, the things which you learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you. I want to hit on that real quick, because a lot of people will say a lot of things about who God is, what God does. When you're studying deliverance, you will hear spirit of this, spirit of that, God of peace. The God of peace will be with you. Note then that what that means is that if we don't do that, we're going to have a God of something else. We aren't going to have peace. We aren't going to have contentment. We aren't going to have a soundness in the way that we approach the world. There's going to be something missing. There's going to be conflict. And we see that when people who try to fill their lives with video games, with alcohol, with idolatry, their lives are not filled with peace. That's an internal thing. Their life, their headspace is not peaceful. They're constantly at war as their members lust after one thing or another. It's not a good place to be. All right, continuing in verse 10. But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly, that now at last your care for me has flourished again, though you surely did care, but you lacked opportunity. Not that I speak in regard to need, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. I know how to be abased, I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I have learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And then continuing in 14. Nevertheless, you have done well that you shared in my distress. Now you Philippians know also that in the beginning of the gospel, when I departed from Macedonia, no church shared with me concerning giving and receiving, but you only. For even in Thessalonica you sent aid once and again for my necessities. Not that I seek the gift, but I seek the fruit that abounds to your account. Indeed, I have all and abound. I am full, having received from Epaphroditus the things sent from you, a sweet smelling aroma, an acceptable sacrifice, well-pleasing to God. And my God shall supply all of your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. Now to our God and Father be glory forever and ever. Amen. So, sorry, I haven't remembered to drink water this morning as well. I have seasonal allergies, and I think dust is becoming one of them. It's not the Rona, though. I can still taste my food. So, anyway, this passage is talking about how, regardless of the circumstance that we are in, regardless of where we are at, we can be okay. We can be fine. And not just that, but in the way that we interact with others, when we make sacrifices, we're not doing it for the sacrifice itself. Like, it's not a... let me do it this way. So a lot of people look at the relationship of works and salvation, and they say, well, salvation is not of works, so that none may boast. It is of grace alone. And that's true. But there's a flip side to that, in the sense that the works are a response to salvation. And so if someone claims to be saved with their mouth, but their lives don't walk that out in some form or fashion, then that's a red flag. There's a disparity there. And it's not to say that, well, if you don't give this much money, if you don't spend this much time in ministry, those tangible things are not defined for us ahead of time. Those are examples of opportunities, but those are not the point. The heart condition behind people taking that opportunity is the point, and that's what part of what Paul is talking about, is that, it's not just that they were helping him, but that they were doing something in response to work that God was doing in their hearts, in their minds. That even when other churches were busy focusing on themselves, trying to find peace, the Philippians had apparently found Christ and trusted in him and had faith and were able to act out in faith in order to support Paul. And Paul was appreciating that, but he's basically saying, it's like, look, don't think like this is a necessity. This isn't something that's, critical, because I'm okay if I don't have that support. Whether you guys give me support or not isn't the point. But I really want to appreciate that you gave me that support. And I want to, to encourage you that, don't just support me, monetarily, but also be thinking about other ways to serve. Be looking for those opportunities, because you might have a heart for somebody else, but you don't have an opportunity to serve them yet. So that would be like back in verse 10, where it says, "But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly now that at last your care for me has flourished again, though you surely did care, but you lacked opportunity." So again, this might be where it can be frustrating to have a circumstance where you want to help somebody, you want to serve, but you're not able to for one reason or another. An example in our own personal life is that the head pastor of our church is a wonderful man, and he has a great wife, and they're very loving people. And we have been trying to arrange for them to have time with us for fellowship, to come over and share a dinner, because with our family dynamic, with as many young children as we've got, and the schedule that we hold because of my work, it's really hard to try and have fellowship with folks during the week. But they have desired to serve and to be showing appreciation for us, because we have chosen to be faithful monetarily with our time and efforts. Obviously I preach, but I'm also the head elder or leader or administrator for children's ministry. So it is my responsibility to, for example, we're right now writing our formal policies. I'm the one that puts the schedule together. I'm the one that makes sure that everybody has the resources that they need. And I'm also the one that all the other volunteers bounce their creative ideas off of. Because I've basically told them, it's like, look, I'm going to create the foundation. I'm going to create the administrative backbone, but I need you guys to be the one that focus on, what are the lessons that we want to teach? How do we want to approach that? What's the schedule that we want for the mornings? I'm going to provide them that sort of safety and the protection of the big things outside of the Sunday morning time spent with the children. I want to try and make sure that I have that stuff taken care of as much as possible so that their focus and their effort can be on the care of the children. And I'm not getting paid for this. This is a volunteer thing, but it's a response to what God has been doing in my life. It is a response to what I see as an opportunity to show that I care. And so our head pastor has been trying to, reciprocate that as the best they can, and that's usually most easily done through sharing a meal and spending time together and talking. But it's been over a couple of months now that we've been trying to arrange for opportunities to be able to get together, and it just hasn't happened for one reason or another. Even right now, he's actually on a trip to help out some of the churches in another country. They're dealing with some very heart-achingly difficult decisions as far as the structure and organization and management of their church family. There's just some real big controversies going on, and he was asked to come and help serve as a mediator of sorts, someone to help and try and walk them through a very difficult time. So again, there's desire for care. We care about our local church, and we serve in it, not just because we have a lot of children, but also because we want to have the connections and the fellowship, and we want to use the gifts and talents that God has given us to serve the creation and the formation of His family here, so that way when the fullness of His kingdom is made manifest in the new heaven and new earth, we've already gotten a head start. We've already, that's the benefit of fellowship, of being able to live as if you are in a physical kingdom when it's only spiritual now, is that your heart is conditioned, it's prepared for what's going to come. It's not here in its fullness. There are still problems, there are still difficulties, there is still trial and tribulation that we will deal with. But the more that we are prepared for that eventual eternity, the greater we are going to appreciate and enjoy it from a subjective standpoint. And from a biblical standpoint, the greater the reward that we have to look forward to. I don't want to talk about what that is and my opinion on what it is, but again, so this passage, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This is not about, hey, I'm going to go do what I want. To summarize the sermon that our head pastor gave a couple weeks ago on this passage, it's not about us and achieving. It's not about us getting what we want, and it's not about us taking care of ourselves. It's about us being willing to sacrifice, about being willing to give, to respond, to know, to share, to, in a difficult time, trust and not show fear. All of this stuff is part of the basics of the Christian faith. These are things that are a necessary aspect of walking out what we believe and to live a life in a response to being saved. That we think about, as the passage opened up, that the things that we think about are things that are going to be good, that we're looking to redeem and not just throw out the baby with the bathwater. That if there are things that are good, that are worthy of our time and energy, that we should be thinking about them. If there are opportunities to serve, that we should be looking for them and providing our time and efforts and our talents. Perhaps money, but if you don't have it, then God can still use you. God can still work through you, even if you have nothing. And so that's what I want to leave you guys with right now, is that as we're going into a week that is as contentious as any I have ever lived through, to my knowledge at least, You know, people are going to be looking at what they're going to get. People are going to be looking at, do I get what I want in this life? Did I get the politician that I wanted? Did I have the um, do I have a job? What's the future going to look like? There's so much riding on the decisions that are being made right now, and it's what I want to encourage folks with, and what's partly going to be a big part of the message that I share tonight during our prayer service is we're going to be okay. It doesn't matter what happens here and now, in the sense that we are trained to believe that it is. What happens now is a blink of an eye in comparison to eternity. What happens now is all going to burn. You could build an amazing building, you could have a huge family, you could have all this, that, and the other, but what we see in Revelation is it's all going away. It's all going to be destroyed, and a new creation is going to exist. And in that new creation is where we will continue our existence. So all the stuff that we seek to achieve, all of the laws, the social structures, the cultural values, all that kind of stuff, all that's going to get washed away. And so our focus, our efforts, it's not a waste to want good things in this life, to try and fight against evil, to protect your children from the influence of people who do not actually care about your children. Those things are not a waste of time. But if you look at the Great Commission, it's about telling people the good news of the gospel. Jesus Christ has saved us not just from a bad back or from that kind of, it's like, we haven't been saved from material circumstances, from a bad politician, from the social awkwardness of blah 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 blah. We've been saved in eternity, and if our faith is in Jesus Christ, we don't have to worry about what's going on right now. We can have a lot or we can have a little. We can be persecuted or we can be in time of great ease and comfort. Regardless, we can be okay through the power of Jesus Christ. We can be all right, and we can serve God regardless of what's going on around us. So again, I would encourage you, look at that passage, read the whole thing, the whole chapter if necessary. Just to understand, it's like the early church was in times of great distress, of social outcasts, legal outcasts. Rome itself was, at least they're claiming now, that it was very religiously tolerant, but still the start of a new religion, so to speak, to put it in an unfair and somewhat crude fashion. It's never an easy thing. It's never easy to get things going. But what we saw is that because the power of God is what was drawing people in, because the power of God changing the way that people could live, the way that people could interact with the world, that is what drew people in. Not just, hey, some future state's going to be handled, but it's like, because that future state is handled, because the future we don't have to worry about anymore, I can approach today free. I can approach today with a boldness, with a confidence that I otherwise would never have, that you can't get through any other sort of method or mantra or meditation or manipulation. You can't talk yourself into that. It has to be real. It has to be true. So I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And the things that Christ strengthens me in is being here in the present, not being lost in the fantasy of the future or worrying about my past. It's being in the present and being able to tell people about Jesus Christ, to share the good news of the gospel, to make disciples, to baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's what I'm being strengthened to do, to be a part of that kingdom here and now, to be focusing on things that are questionable but have the opportunity to be redeemed, to be making sacrifices of my time, talents, energy, resources in order to demonstrate for others that this life does cause a difference. There is something significantly different about Christianity. There is something unique that you don't get anywhere else. If you don't have it yourself, reach out. Ask God. Even if you don't have fancy words, it doesn't take much. The story I used on this last Sunday was the Canaanite woman who was begging Christ to heal her daughter who had been demon possessed. And she was effectively reduced down to just, Lord, help me. And that's a fantastic prayer. Even if that's all that you can summon, even if that's all that you can do is just earnestly, honestly, wholeheartedly cry out, God, help me. That can still change your life. It can still change everything for you. And not based on a way that not because of something that you are doing, but because of what Christ already did on the cross. Because of the gift that's already been offered to us.